It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man with a large fortune is in want of a wife.
Indeed. However, little known of his truths or feelings may be upon his first arrival, but the truth is so well fixed in the minds of neighboring families that he is without question instantly considered to be property of one or another of their daughters.
Yes, yes, that could be especially said of...
The Bennets!
Oh, monsieur!
Ah, Madam, Miss Bennet, what a pleasure to have you in our store yet again. But where are your beautiful and charming daughters?
Yes, where is your litter? Or, your little pretty daughters, yes.
Oh, don't you worry. I brought them with me. Jane, Lizzie, Lydia, Kitty. Coming, Mama. Oh, Lydia! Kitty, Lydia, get up this instant of all the nonsense. Jane, come here, darling. Come here, my dearest, beautiful child. Isn't she quite lovely, sir?
A vision.
Yes, how lucky for Mrs. Bennet to assume the others were full of life.
Yes, well, any man could search all of England, and he would not find a creature as lovely and agreeable as my Jane.
Mamma, please.
No need to be so humble, dear, although we Bennets are very humble. Girls! Please go outside and play. I saw some handsome soldiers out there. Go make yourselves a nuisance to them. Soldiers!
Mamma, you know full well they will only make fools of themselves.
Never mind you, Lizzie.
Yes, many soldiers have been riding late.
Yes, but not just soldiers. Did you hear who arrived just a few...
Someone has arrived in town. Who has arrived?
Mr. Bingley. He has arrived and taken Netherfield.
With?
His sister, Miss Bingley, and they are accompanied by a Mr. Darcy.
So he's single.
Yeah.
And of large fortune?
Well, yes, but...
Girls, to the carriage, now!
Mama, we were talking to the nicest soldiers, including a very handsome one named Mr. Wickham.
Oh, that's lovely, dear. Out of the way! We must get home to tell your father. I know what Lucas is getting to him first. Single man. No, we must hurry.
The Bennets!
Mr. Bennett! Mr. Bennett, what are you? Oh, Mr. Bennett, wake up!
Oh, I'm dear. Oh, but Papa, how could you not? She's so
Kitty,
loud.
girls, off with you. I must talk to your father.
Poor Papa, she'll worry him to death about Mr. Bingley. Do not worry, Jane. Soon enough we are going to be worried to death.
Mr. Bennett, have you heard that Netherfield's been let at last?
My dear, I have not.
Well, it has, for Mrs. Long has just told me all about it. Well, do you not want to know who has taken it?
You want to tell me, and I have no objection to hearing it.
This was invitation enough.
It has been taken by a young man of large fortune from the north of England.
What's his name?
Bingley?
Is he married or single?
Oh, single, my dear, to be sure. A single man of large fortune, 4,000 or 5,000 a year. What a fine thing for our girls. I am thinking of his marrying one of them. It is very likely he may fall in love with one of them, and therefore you must visit him.
Oh, that is far more than I am age for, I assure you.
But consider your daughters. Sir William and Lady Lucas are determined to go, and they will no doubt introduce Charlotte to them. Indeed, you must go, for it'll be impossible for us to visit him if you do not.
Perhaps instead I will send him a few lines. I can give him my hearty consent to marry whichever he chooses, but I must throw a good word out for my little Lizzie.
I desire you will do no such thing. Lizzie's not a bit better than the others. Mr. Bennett, how can you abuse your children in such a way? You take delight in vexing me and have no compassion for my poor nerves.
Oh, you mistake me, my dear. I have a high compassion for your nerves. They're my old friends, and I've heard you mention them with consideration these last 20 years at least.
Oh!
Indeed, there's no need to visit with me, my dear, so I suggest you forget the idea.
Mr. Bennett, how can you be such a...
No need at all. Personally, I don't know why we should visit the man twice in one day, especially when we're to see him for a long fall.
Oh, arrives, I'm sure he'll be eager to dance with you, Jane.
Mamma, there are many lovely ladies from which he may choose, though I do think you're right.
Don't blush, Jane. You must know how beautiful you are, and so fortunate to be so. Other girls are not quite as lucky.
Mamma, some people do not value appearances alone.
Some do not have the luxury. Jane, you be sure to charm Mr. Bailey. Don't let anyone else ensnare him, especially not
Charlotte!
Jane, Lizzie, you look beautiful. Good evening, Mrs. Bennett. Always lovely to see you.
Yes, well, if you ladies will please excuse me, I'm going to find Lydia to make sure she's not had too much punch. Though I'm not quite sure where she's gone.
I saw a group of soldiers.
Ah, Lydia! Oh, Jane, you be sure to keep an eye out for you know who.
Have you done much dancing tonight, Lizzie?
No, there are not many gentlemen present.
I'm sure more gentlemen will be arriving soon.
Yes, and Jane, you should keep a particular eye out for Mr. Bingley.
Mr. Bingley?
Yes, I believe he's coming with...
Now! Who is that with him, Charlotte?
His sister, Caroline Bingley, and their friend, Mr. Darcy. He is said to be very wealthy, but very cold.
Yes, I can see that. Mr. Bingley has a very warm smile, though. Don't you think so, Jane? Jane? Yes.
Darcy, can you remember a finer occasion? I cannot recall a friendlier group of people, and I've never seen so many beautiful young ladies in all my life.
You are dancing with the only handsome girl in the room.
Oh, she is the most beautiful creature I've ever seen. But her sister Elizabeth is also quite pretty, and I dare say quite agreeable. Do let my partner introduce you.
She is tolerable, but not handsome enough to tempt me. I'm in no humor at present to give consequence to girls who are slighted by other men. You had better return to your partner and enjoy her smiles, for you are wasting your time with me.
Oh, Lizzie.
It's all right, Charlotte. I'll not give him another moment's thought.
Yes, you are not to worry about him. What a conceited man! No worry. There are many other pleasant people here.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Lizzie, oh, look what I have found. This is Mr. Wickham. Mr. Wickham, this is my second oldest sister, Miss Elizabeth, and our friend Charlotte Lucas. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance, ladies. Miss Elizabeth, your younger sister has told me much about you.
Oh,
He's an officer, Lizzie, and he knows Mr. Darcy.
Wickham. Miss Elizabeth, I wondered if perhaps you would give me the honor of joining me for a dance.
I'm sorry, Mr. Darcy, but I believe Miss Elizabeth has consented to dance with me.
Oh, yes, I have. Forgive me, Mr. Darcy, but perhaps there is another woman here who can tempt you.
Are you well acquainted with Mr. Darcy?
Truthfully, no. This evening is the first I've laid eyes on him.
A very distinguished man, though, forgive me, a heart colder than stone. And to think I once thought of him as a brother.
A brother? Mr. Darcy?
Yes, well, you see, we grew up together. As a young boy, I was sent to work for Mr. Darcy's father, and he came to regard me as another son. And much to Darcy's distaste, but beyond my control, the preferred son. His father was kinder to me than anyone I had ever known. In fact, he left me a more than generous inheritance, which upon his father's death, Darcy refused to let me see. Of course, it was his birth son's word against mine, and so to Darcy went the fortune. I become penniless and displaced from the only place I had known. I enlisted as a soldier to better my circumstances. But oh, I must be boring you terribly with my tragic tale.
Oh, no! I was already determined not to care for the man, but upon hearing this, I must vow to despise him forever.
Oh, Miss Elizabeth, that won't be necessary, though I am thrilled to have found such a lovely and sympathetic ear as yours. Lizzie! Oh, Lizzie! Did you see? Mr. Bingley has danced with Jane twice. She was the only girl in the room with whom he asked twice. Of course, he did partner with Mariah Lucas for the second dance, but he danced with Jane for the first and third. Oh!
If he had any compassion for me, he would not have danced so much.
Oh, Lizzie, be happy for your sister. Why, I think it'll be no time at all before they're married.
Mom, please!
How obscene!
How vanity!
It's been raining for 3 days. Yes, I am quite happy Jane is resting at Netherfield. It was so kind of Caroline Bingley to invite her.
Oh, yes, but the invitation was to spend an afternoon, not 3 days. Mama, why did you insist on Jane riding on horseback when she could have taken the carriage? We told you it looked like it would rain. Now poor Jane is sick. I'm quite worried about her.
Yes, but the Bingleys are taking good care of her. And I'm sure Mr. Bingley's happy to have her around. Though I do hope she is in control of her mucus.
Oh, I do seem to recall hearing of a handkerchief shortage at Netherfield.
Oh, Mr. Bennet.
I think I shall pay Jane a visit once the rain stops.
Oh, but Lizzie, you can't! That dreadful Mr. Darcy will be there. He's much too full of pride for my taste.
His pride does not offend me so often as pride does, because there's an excuse for it. One cannot wonder that so very fine a young man with family, fortune, and everything in his favor should think highly of himself. If I may say so, he has the right to be proud.
That is very true. I could easily forgive his pride, if he had not mortified mine.
The rain has stopped, Lizzie. Will you go?
Yes, I will. And I will walk.
I think it is.
What's that?
It seems that a Bennett has gotten loose and is traipsing through the mud, stopping and bedraggled towards Netherfield.
Oh, to see the look on Caroline Bingley's face when she arrived.
Oh! I guess she's arrived.
Charles!
Yes, dear sister?
Did you see? She walked here?
She was worried about Jane, or her sister.
Yes, but to trot through the mud all that way like a farm animal. Though after seeing her mother and sisters behave at the ball, one could hardly be shocked.
Caroline, please, keep your voice down.
Yes, Jane is quite lovely, but her family. I've never met such unfortunate people. Mr. Darcy, I trust you are well.
I am rather... Miss Elizabeth.
Hello, Mr. Darcy. Mr. Bingley, I cannot thank you enough for the kindness you've shown my sister during her illness.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Or not that I take pleasure in her ill health, it's just...
Yes, well, I'm sure she would not be recovering so well had you not been the most gracious host. And thank you, Miss Bingley, for attending to her.
Yes, well, I'm quite fond of Jane. It's very uncommon to meet as lovely a young girl as she around here. Oh, that reminds me, Mr. Darcy, how's that dear sweet sister of yours?
Oh, she is well, thank you.
Mr. Darcy has the sweetest, most enchanting younger sister. Oh, how I adore her. And she's quite the prodigy. She's unmatched at the pianoforte, I'd say. Miss Elizabeth, do you play the pianoforte?
I'm afraid I do, and quite poorly.
Nonsense, you must fight for us. Brother, tell her she must fight for us.
I...
Go ahead, Miss Elizabeth.
Well done, Miss Elizabeth. I think that was quite good.
You are far too modest, Miss Elizabeth.
Yes. Well, I prefer not to have an overgrown sense of pride.
Yes, well.
Oh, if you all would excuse me, I would like to go keep Jane company for a while. I think she shall be well enough to return home in the morning. Excuse me.
Well, I never.
Oh, why don't you just hush?
Charles, what has gotten into you? How dare you?
Excuse me.
See?
Oh, those Bennets!
I don't think I have ever seen such a look of pain as I did when Charles Bingley helped you into that carriage. Though I'm not sure who was more pleased to have you there, Mamma or Mr. Bingley.
Oh, Lizzie, they were so kind to me. I'm quite fond of them.
Them or Mr. Bingley?
Lizzie.
Don't worry, Jane. You may try to hide your true feelings from others, but not from me. Though perhaps, if you really care for the man, you should encourage him to propose to you.
Dearest! What is it, dear?
It appears our favorite cousin, Mr. Collins, will be arriving today.
Mr. Collins, why the boring!
Yes, dearest, that Mr. Collins, the very man who's set to inherit this estate. Lydia, why should he inherit the estate and not Mamma or one of us?
Because women cannot inherit estates.
Oh, well, that's stupid.
I know. Girls, our favorite cousin, Mr. Collins, will be arriving today, and we must all treat him very well. He is set to inherit the estate. Mr. Bennet, when is he to arrive?
Very soon, I think.
But when?
Well, now?
Oh.
Mr. Bennet, Mrs. Bennet, always a pleasure. Ah, these must be your lovely daughters.
Yes, it's my oldest Jane and Lizzie, Kitty and Lydia.
I must congratulate you. I've heard much of their beauty, but it seems in this instance fame has fallen short of the truth.
Oh?
My patroness, Lady Catherine, I presume you know of Lady Catherine?
Oh, you mean the old...
Yes, however, I don't think we've had the pleasure of meeting her.
My taste in beauty was formed by the expert opinion of Lady Catherine.
Mr. Collins, why don't you tell us more of your distinguished patroness?
Never in my life have I witnessed such qualities in a person of her rank, so affable and charming in conversation. I'm quite indebted to her and grateful for her patronage. And as you know, dear cousin, she has has been urging me to find my wife, and has even agreed to call upon one, provided, of course, I choose with discretion.
Oh?
It has always been my intention to marry one of the Bennet's daughters, and I think perhaps Miss Jane.
Oh, I'm sorry to disappoint you, Mr. Collins, but Jane is practically engaged. We're expecting a proposal from her very, very soon. However, Lizzie is second to her in age and beauty.
She seems to be an agreeable alternative.
A note has arrived, and dinner is served.
Oh, Mr. Bingley's sick of a ball! Oh, Mr. Collins, we would be delighted for you to escort us. Come, we will discuss more after dinner.
Jane, did you hear that?
Yes, Bingley has invited us to a ball.
Collins. Oh, Lizzie, I'm sure you have nothing to worry about. For the first time in my life, Jane, I am not inclined to believe you. Sure of it, and she seems to find delight in sharing it with anyone who is willing to listen. But, yes, seeing them together, I think Mama may just be right.
But does Jane return Mr. Bingley's affections? She seems much more reserved than he.
Jane prefers to be composed, and she is a bit shy.
Yes, but how is he to know?
Is it not plain?
Oh, Mr. Darcy.
Mrs. Lucas, Miss Elizabeth, please forgive me. Miss Elizabeth, I wondered if perhaps you would do me the honor of joining me for a dance.
Well, wouldn't you rather
I
dance?
do not generally enjoy dancing, but I would be most pleased if you would.
Yes. Shall we?
Forgive me, for I am not, as they say, the lightest of foot.
On the contrary, you are better than to be expected for someone who does not enjoy the activity.
Please, Miss Elizabeth, I must apologize if ever I have offended you.
There is no need to apologize to me, Mr. Darcy. However, I do believe there is one to whom an apology is owed. In fact, I cannot help but wonder if your presence is why I have not yet seen him tonight.
Oh, and who might that be?
Excuse me, sir. I was wondering if I may have the pleasure of this next dance, Miss Elizabeth? Marvelous. Shall we? Fine gentleman, that Mr. Darcy. You know, he's the nephew of my esteemed patroness, Lady Catherine de Bourgh.
Oh!
I don't mean to make you jealous, Miss Elizabeth, but I had the pleasure of dancing with a few partners, including your friend, Miss Lucas. Very agreeable young woman. It's a shame she's not more attractive. She thinks very highly of you, as does everyone. And I must say, Miss Elizabeth, you're the most charming person I engaged with tonight.
Yes? Well, thank you.
Oh, Lizzie, there you are! Now you should be very kind to Mr. Collins tonight. And did you see? Mr. Bingley has danced 3 dances with your sister tonight. Oh, it is a wonder they are not engaged already. Oh, though it seems very, very soon, I will have both my oldest daughters engaged to be married. Why, certainly, Mr. Collins. Kitty, Lydia, Jane, Charlotte, come. Let Mr. Collins speak with Lizzie alone. Mr. Bennet, come now.
Mama, no. Jane, Charlotte, Papa.
Miss Elizabeth, as you are well aware, my distinguished patroness, Lady Catherine de Bourgh, has provided me a modest but most comfortable living and a decent little home. My purpose in this speech is fairly obvious. My intentions are too plain to be mistaken. From the moment I saw you, I knew almost instantly that I want to pursue you as a future companion in my life. And as a clergyman, it is my duty to set an example for his parish. And because of that, and the urging of Lady Catherine, we find ourselves here in this very moment.
Mr. Collins,
It has always been my intention to marry one of the Bennet's daughters to avoid the disinheritance. And so...
Mr. Collins, I am sorry. I am flattered by your offer, but I am afraid I just cannot accept.
What did you mean? Of course she was the
Mama, I am sorry, but I will not marry him.
Lizzie, Mr. Bennett, do something! I am sorry, Mr. Collins. She's a headstrong and foolish girl.
Yes, headstrong, a quality that will not find the approval of Lady Catherine. Charlotte, I wonder if I may have the pleasure of speaking to you alone?
Yes, Mr. Collins.
Mr. Bennett, look what she's done! My own daughter! I vow I shall never see her again!
Oh, Lizzie, your mother vows that she'll never see you again if you don't marry Mr. Collins, and I vow that I shall never see you again if you do.
Oh, Papa.
Oh, bold, ungrateful, selfish, horrible, rude Mr. Bennett!
Jane!
It's from Miss Bingley.
Oh!
Oh no. It says that Mr. and Miss Bingley and Mr. Darcy have left Netherfield and have no plan to ever return. She says she believes her brother will soon be engaged to Miss Georgiana Darcy.
What? 2 husbands lost? I cannot comprehend this. I feel faint. I need to lie down. Girls, help me upstairs.
Oh, Lizzie, after all this excitement, I think I'm gonna go out for a stroll. I need some air.
Forgive me, Miss Elizabeth. Perhaps I've called at an inconvenient time.
Oh,
No, it's just I was surprised to see you. And it's just been quite the eventful day. Please forgive my state. Oh, please, won't you sit?
Your state is as enchanting as ever, despite what events you recently have faced. Thank you. I wanted to extend a most sincere apology.
Whatever for?
I had much hoped to see you at the ball at Netherfield, and though I did receive an invitation, I decided it was best for me not to attend. I am afraid that upon reflection, I realized that perhaps I was too forthcoming with my history and feelings towards Mr. Darcy. It's just so rare that I meet as kind and sympathetic an ear as yours.
No need to apologize, Mr. Wickham. I completely understand.
Your family has a lovely home here, Miss Elizabeth.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Once again, I feel I must extend my apologies, as I must take my leave. But would it be all right if perhaps I called upon you again sometime soon?
Oh, yes.
Wonderful. Until then, Miss Elizabeth.
Miss Long, did you hear that Mr. Collins and Miss Charlotte Lucas have been married?
Why, yes, you fool. That happened many weeks ago. This, of course, was after he was rejected by Elizabeth Bennet. She was not too happy about the engagement, I hear. Though not pure jealousy, because she did not wish for her dearest friend to be forever tied to horrible Mr. Collins.
Yes, that's understandable, but why did Miss Lucas marry him then?
She was in fear of one day becoming a burden to her parents. She had no other prospects, and marriage was the only means of securing a comfortable home.
Well, that's stupid.
I know.
Oh, Charlotte, it was lovely. I see your hands all over.
Yes, well, it took some work. Oh, I'm so glad that you finally came to visit, Lizzie. You'll be most comfortable in our spare room.
Thank you, Charlotte. Oh, Mr. Collins, I was just remarking to your wife what a lovely home you have.
What's the matter, dear?
Cousin, you are in the most exquisite of treats. Lady Catherine has invited us for supper this evening.
Oh, don't worry, you look beautiful. When are we to go to supper, dear?
Soon.
Yes, but when?
I think now.
Mr. Collins, you're late.
We came as soon as we...
Madam, my dearest apologies. I'd like to once again introduce to you my wife, Charlotte Lucas, and my dearest cousin who just arrived today, Miss Elizabeth.
How do you do,
Miss
Lady
Elizabeth,
Catherine?
please have a seat. No, this child almost crushed Anne. She was very fragile.
Cousin, I'd like to introduce to you the most ever enchanting Anne Pittsburgh. She's inflicted with ailment and frailty, of which kind I'm not sure, but she is a lovely conversationist.
Oh, please forgive me. Could this evening get any more awkward?
It's William.
Mr. Darcy!
You know my nephew, Miss Bennet?
I have had the pleasure of being acquainted with Miss Elizabeth, yes.
What is everyone staring at? Come, let us have our supper.
Madam, I'd like to once again commend you on the most excellent.
I didn't cook it, Collins.
No,
Miss Elizabeth, Mr. Collins tells me you have sisters.
Yes, ma'am, many. My older sister is visiting relatives in London. The youngest is 14 and
Do you
they're-
draw, Miss Bennet?
I'm afraid not.
Do you play the pianoforte?
Not very well. Your nephew once had to suffer through my playing.
Oh, on the contrary, you are better than to be expected for somebody who does not enjoy the activity.
You must play now.
Now?
Is there an echo in this room? Now! Thank you, Miss Elizabeth. I think I've had just about enough amusement. What do you think? Good night to you all. Come in.
Mr. Darcy, always a pleasure. Cousin, Charlotte.
Good evening, Miss Elizabeth.
Oh, the candles had not been lit. I would relight them.
Fine man, that Mr. Darcy.
I suppose that depends on what you mean by fine.
And after all, he saved his good friend, Mr. Bingley, from the most disastrous engagement.
What?
Apparently, the girl was from the most ill-mannered family, and the mother had designed to force the two together to take advantage of Mr. Bingley's wealth. Of course, I do not know who this young woman was, but Mr. Darcy did a noble thing in carrying them
Are you sure you won't come with us, Lizzie?
I'm sure, Charlotte. Thank you. It would be nice to have some time to think. And besides, I need to return a letter to Jane.
Oh, Jane, how is she? Does she like London?
You know Jane. She will not fully express her feelings, but I can see through her pleasant words. I'm glad at least this trip is providing a bit of a distraction for her.
Well, we can all use one once in a while. All right, we'll be back in a few hours. Goodbye, Lizzie.
Goodbye, Charlotte. Oh, Mr. Darcy!
In vain I have tried. It will not do. My feelings will not be repressed. You must allow me to tell you how ardently I love and admire you. I came to Rossings for one purpose, to humbly offer you my hand.
What?
Please, Miss Elizabeth, I have struggled through the pain.
Well, pain? I can appreciate and do apologize for your pain, Mr. Darcy. However, my sympathies for that pain stop somewhat short when one has inflicted so much of it himself.
What can you mean?
I know yours was the hand that drove Mr. Bingley and Jane apart. The same one you now have the audacity to offer me?
I do not know what you have heard. But any action I have taken was not done with the intention of harm, but only to prevent the harm of a dear friend. Your sister did not return his affection.
Oh, she's shy. And that is just one instance, to say nothing of what you have done to poor Mr. Wickham.
Mr. Wickham, and what exactly have you heard?
Only that you stripped him of his promised inheritance, all because of your pride. Mr. Darcy, I must refuse you, and would do so until the end of my days.
Mr. Wickham is not who he has painted himself to be. When my father passed, I saw to it he had made a valuable living. However, upon my father's death, he made it clear he had no intention of earning that living. I saw to it he had a severance of £3,000. Within months, he gambled it away. Last summer, he made my sister fall in love with him, and in secret they made plans to elope. Thankfully, they were discovered, and when it was made clear that Mr. Wickham not received a cent of her inheritance, he disappeared. It broke Georgiana's heart. She was 15. Miss Elizabeth, I apologize for any repulse my offer has caused you, and I will take my leave.
Lizzie, we were just on the road. Terrible news to your parents. It's Lydia. She's run away.
What? She's run away with George Wickham? Papa says he is demanding a dowry for her. Papa cannot afford that.
Oh, Lizzie, she'll be ruined.
We'll all be ruined.
Mr. Bennet, Mrs. Bennet, Miss Elizabeth, I presume these are your sisters?
All but one. Our youngest was just recently married.
Yes, I believe I heard as much. I would like to speak with Miss Elizabeth.
Oh, certainly.
I would like to speak with Miss Elizabeth alone.
Oh, yes, of course. Come along, Jane, Kitty, Mr. Bennet.
pleasure of your visit.
Oh, really, Miss Bennet? Surely you cannot be at a loss as to why I'm here. I'm not here to play games, Miss Bennet, and I will not be toyed with. I come to ask you plainly, are you engaged to my nephew, Fitzwilliam Darcy?
I am not.
And will you promise never to enter into an engagement with him?
I will not, and I certainly never shall make such a promise.
You insolent girl! Fitzwilliam has long been betrothed to my daughter Anne. It was arranged in their infancy. Do you really think that you, a foolish girl of inferior birth, could stand in the way of their arrangement? A girl whose family is known to be common and whose sister's scandalous follies resulted in a patched-up marriage? Do you really think that you would be allowed to stain the Darcy name and pollute the halls of Pemberley?
It was never my desire or design. However, I do have the desire to ask you to leave immediately. You have insulted me in every way possible, and I will design your way out of my home.
Well, I've never been treated so poorly in all my life.
Lizzie, are you all right? What was that about, Lizzie? What does she mean?
Just a misunderstanding. I'm fine. I'm fine.
Oh, Lizzie. Mr. Bennett, do you hear something?
No, dear.
But Mr. Bennett, I hear something.
Then why don't you go have a look, dear?
Have a look. Can't you see I'm occupied? Kitty, have a look.
Oh, yes, Mama. There's a carriage. A rather nice carriage. With two men. Two young men.
Oh,
Why? Yes, I believe it's Mr. Bingley and Mr. Darcy.
Mr. Bingley, Mr. Girls! Oh. Could it? Is it?
There is nothing to worry about, Jane.
Mr. Bingley and Mr. Darcy.
Oh, excuse me, gentlemen. We were not expecting you. Mr. Bingley, you were looking well. How is your, sister?
Very well, ma'am. I wonder if I might be permitted to speak with Miss Jane?
Yes, certainly. Girls, Mr. Bennett, come. Let Mr. Bingley speak with Jane alone.
Miss Jane, I have to apologize. You have been the victim of a most unfortunate misunderstanding, and one I shall always regret, as it has taken me away from you for some time. What I'd like to say is, or what I'd like to
No,
ask,
it's all right, Charles.
Jane, will you make me the happiest man in the world and accept my hand in marriage?
Yes, 1,000 times yes.
Miss Elizabeth, please forgive my presence here. I only came in support of a friend.
I know, Mr. Darcy. I've seen your loyalty to Mr. Bingley, your sister, and even me displayed quite beautifully as of late.
Oh,
I know it was you who paid the money to Mr. Wickham. And I thank you with my whole heart.
Please, Miss Elizabeth, if your feelings have...
I love you, Mr. Darcy. I am only sorry that I did not realize it sooner. Perhaps had my pride not gotten in the way.
Your pride? Here I always thought it was mine. That was always in our way. Elizabeth, you have bewitched me, body and soul. And I love you. I love you. I love you.
Mrs. Long, did you hear that Mr. Charles Bingley and Miss Jane Bennet have been married just the other day?
Her? I was there. Oh, it was a lovely wedding, though not quite as lovely as her sister Elizabeth to Mr. Darcy.
What? I thought Mr. Darcy and Miss Elizabeth detested one another.
Of course, we all did. It was just a matter of pride getting in the way of truly loving one another.
Letting pride get in the way of love? Well, that stupid.
I know.
We'll go ahead and get started. I'd like to begin by giving the actors a nice warm round of applause. Maybe you can quickly go down the line and say your name, introduce yourself, as well as the character that you play tonight. What was that, please?
Hello, my name is Luke Basile, and I played Mr. Darcy.
Hi, I am Liam Pemberton, and I played Mr. Collins in Shopkeeper.
Hi, I'm Hannah Cox, and I played Mrs. Bennett.
Hi, I'm Ashley Curry, and I played Lizzie.
I'm Eli, I played Bingley and Lady Catherine.
I'm Haley Evans, and I played Jane Bennett.
I'm Danielle D'Angelo, and I played Lydia Bennett, Caroline Bingley, and Mr. Wickham.
I'm Skylar Noble, and I played Charlotte Lucas, and Mrs. Long.
Hi, my name is Kayla Barnes, and I played Kitty Bennett and Mr. Bennett.
I'm Kaylee Morrison. I adapted the script, and I also directed the show. Any questions for the actors about the process or the production? Anything that you saw tonight, maybe you want some clarification on, or are curious about how that came to be, or something like that? We got a question here.
How was it decided with the in regards to the casting of Mr. Bennett?
Well, did you have something you want to share about that, Kayla? You played this?
Well, I don't know how he was casted, but
I'm sorry if that question was-
I'll fill in the blanks a little bit. So, for any of you who are familiar with the story of Pride and Prejudice, you know that unfortunately a lot of the original characters from the novel were slaughtered. They didn't quite make the final cut. And I knew that we wouldn't have enough actors to fill every role. Of course, we could combat that with things like doubling roles, having people play multiple characters. But when it came to casting and as we had auditions for role placement, there were some characters that I wasn't sure who was going to play them, and I was trying to come up with creative ways to kind of fill that empty space. And for some reason, the script was reading to me like a Muppet movie, if any of you. It was particularly a Muppet Christmas Carol, where Michael Caine plays Scrooge, and you have Rizzo and Gonzo as the narrators. It started to very much have that feel of it to me, and I wanted to definitely incorporate some puppet characters. Mr. Bennett seemed like a good choice for that. And I like the idea of having Kitty double as both this child as well as an adult man through a puppet. Any other questions? Yes, right here.
How long did it take you in the writing process?
Well, I started very in short kind of spurts in the fall, and then because of other education director duties, didn't get to pick it back up again until the spring. So I don't really know how long it took me because I would work on it very heavily for one period of time and come back to it. I wish I had a few more months to work on it. I love Pride and Prejudice, obviously. I wish I could have given the script a little even more love, but it took a while. But I decided I was going to write it back in the fall. Any questions for any of the actors?
How did it feel giving up 3 weeks of your summer?
Yeah, I'm curious about that. How did it feel giving up 3 weeks of your summer? Leave your response to that?
Yeah. It was actually worth it because as an actor, it showed you a bunch. We had guest speakers come in for five guest speakers, and they taught us about different things, how to go along with things. And Kaylee also taught us in the morning. We had Shakespeare class, improv class. We had a bunch of different classes. So I mean, it just like, and this whole experience has helped us grow. Now all that, so it was totally worth it.
I think you did an excellent job, each and every one of them.
I agree.
Do you have a response to that?
Oh, I just wanted to say, normally I do give my summertime to theater because of my family, but it was a bit different because I'm so used to having my family members direct or they're somehow filled in with the process. But for me, it was definitely a growth, and I definitely was challenged these 3 weeks. So it was a really fun experience.
I'd say every actor and actress here really enjoys theater, so it definitely wasn't a waste of our time, and it was a worthwhile experience for us all. So that's fine.
Glad to hear that. Is there a question right here?
I was just curious about the combination of contemporary and period costumes and how you came about that.
Do you want to speak to that a little bit? Or how it felt to be a mix of this world of costuming? How it felt to have a mixed aesthetic?
Oh, me, okay. I thought it was pretty cool that we incorporated modern pieces also with the classical, the dresses and stuff. And what Kaylee did is that she thought that the more forward-thinking the character, the more modern pieces they would have. So like someone like Mrs. Bennett, she would have like nothing modern, like very in the time clothing. And then someone like Elizabeth, she had like a choker and like pants actually on over and under it and like earrings. So it was like
Converse.
yes, yeah, exactly, yes. So I thought that was really cool. So.
No problem.
Particularly working with a group of young people, and there's been countless amounts of adaptations of Jane Austen's work, but I really wanted to bring what we think of as Jane Austen with a sense of youth and today, and breathe the life of today into her world a bit. So I wanted to really bring those things together. Costume. Any other questions?
Did that help you as actors feel like more present, like as if you were those characters living now, to be able to wear Converse or do you know what I'm saying? Like, is that what you were saying you were trying to do?
A bit, yeah. It's both for the audience and I think for the actors. I'm curious, yeah, did wearing the modern pieces have an effect on you as you were developing these characters?
Well, I think in a way that did assist us with the characterization aspect of what we were bringing to the show, because like she already stated, the characters who were a little more forward-thinking had more of the modern elements to their costume, and so that enhanced the way you thought about your character and the way you brought them to life yourself, because if they were more forward-thinking, then they would be just a little more out there and a little bit more ahead of their time. And so I think that definitely helped with Elizabeth's character and in contrast Miss Bennett, because she was so in with the time.
So, for me, wearing like choker, black studs, Converse, and leggings and all, like I felt like even in like ball scenes and things where I'm surrounded by all these like period dresses, like I felt like I stuck out just like physically, but it also helped me like mentally, like I thought different, I looked different. So it was interesting, that kind of dynamic in terms of developing Lizzie in this certain production. But yeah, it certainly had an effect on where I was going with the character versus if I were just wearing, period costume and like blended in.
So yeah. Hannah, did you have a response to that?
So I didn't really have any modern elements, and one thing that we learned throughout these 3 weeks is adapting into your character. And one thing I felt I had to do was adapt more because I didn't have any modern, so I felt like I really had to stick to the time period. So that was a really big challenge for me. It was just having to be able to take Mrs. Bennett, not compare it to modern or anything, and just work with her and know what she was thinking and feeling at the time.
Do we have another question? Hand up before we.
Yes.
I'm just curious about everyone that acted here. What was kind of the core of the character that they were able to grasp onto and work with?
What did you find as the core of your character? Lee, you have a response for that?
With the shopkeeper, I kind of found the comedic aspects of him. And with Mr. Collins, I kind of also grasped on to sometimes not understanding kind of obvious things. Because, I mean, there was parts where he was just kind of not picking things up on how people did not like him. Yeah, that's kind of.
For Jane Bennett, she's a very composed character, a lot of grace and a lot of poise, but there's also behind that, which is what I tried to convey, was a little bit of insecurity. You know, there's a lot of attention on her given by her mother, her family. She has to be on her game all the time because she's the oldest sister and she looks out for so many of her younger siblings. So kind of playing around with her vulnerability was also a major aspect of her character, and that's what I really wanted to bring to the stage when it came to Jane Bennett.
For Mrs. Bennett, I found that she was very determined, obviously, to get her daughters married, but it was also, she kind of had to go against what Mr. Bennett was thinking, in which he wanted the daughters to be married for love, but Mrs. Bennett wanted them to be married because she needed the fortune, but not as selfish, but like she just needed them to get married and live their own lives kind of thing. So.
Anyone else have a response to that? Skylar?
I'll go. So I think that Charlotte, she is a very kind-hearted person and only wants the best for people. And so I tried to, I don't know, I just think that she's a very nice person. And when it came down to having to marry Mr. Collins, it wasn't like that she had to, it's that she needed to survive. I don't know if that makes sense, but and then my character, Mrs. Long, she's totally opposite. So Charlotte's this very, small, composed person, and then Mrs. Long is oh, I'm so, and she's very gossipy. And so it was a very different thing for me to go from one type of character to a totally different one.
Eli, I'm curious, you played two characters as well. We haven't heard pretty much tonight, Eli. So, how did you differentiate between Mr. Bingley and Lady Catherine? Where did you find both of those characters?
I kind of thought Lady Catherine was kind of mad hattery. She kind of switched between emotions really quickly, and Bingley was just more, he knew what he wanted. Yeah.
Danielle, same question for you. You played three different characters, the most of anyone in the play, I think.
So I did play three different characters. Where do I start? So Lydia Bennett is definitely more childish. I think she's probably the most childish out of the bunch. She doesn't really know what is in her future. She knows that her mom wants her to get married, so that's what she thinks she needs. So that's really what I took from her. So Caroline Bingley is kind of a control freak, a little bit. And that's the basis of her. She really wants what's best for her brother, but also what's best for her. And that is what she thinks is what's best for her brother, if that makes any sense. And then with Wickham, he's kind of a snake-like character, to put it in the frankest terms. He just wants money, and so he'll do whatever it takes to get to the top, basically.
Any other questions?
Can we give a round of applause to Kaylee over here? Because we couldn't have done it without her. And the tech crew over here.
I'd like to say thank you to all the students. We've spent the past 3 weeks together in some very intensive training, doing college level acting training this summer with a few great guest artists just from tippy top of the industry. And I'm so thankful for all of you and all your hard work. And these students were so open, just willing to just go with everything. And for those of you who are still going to be in high school next year, I really hope that you join us again. And if any of you know any high school students that are interested in theater, I really hope that you'll send them our way and come next summer. I can't believe our experience has come to an end. I'd like to give the kids one more last round of applause. Thank you.